The World Cup qualifying roster has dropped for the September window. It is finally here, guys, and we are talking all about it. What's up, guys? I'm Pete Douthit, host of the 11 Yanks channel, and this is an exciting moment for all of us. This is the beginning of the time where we finally get to slay the ghosts of Cuba by qualifying for our next World Cup. Before we get into it, guys, smash that like button if you haven't already. If you are new to the channel, welcome. We talk about all things USMNT. Don't forget to subscribe. Guys, I am super psyched. This is an interesting roster, a lot of good names, a lot of interesting names, and we're gonna talk about it. Before we delve into it though, I want to talk a little bit about Ricardo Pepi, who is on this roster and who has committed his international future to the United States of America. We don't know what Ricardo Pepi's ceiling is going to be yet, but he's a promising 18-year-old striker scoring goals in MLS, and that is awesome. I know that Mexico was heavily recruiting him. I know that Mexico tried very hard to get him into their program, so the fact that we won this is a huge coup for Gregg Berhalter, for the fans, and for the entire program. Welcome Ricardo Pepi to the US men's national team. It's gonna be a crazy ride. I hope you're ready for it. All right, guys, without further ado, let's dig into this roster. So as always, we start with the goalkeepers, Zack, Steffen, Matt Turner, Ethan Horvath. No real surprises there. All three of these guys were expected to be in the roster. The question here is more about who is going to start, and I think that is anybody's guess. I still think that Zack Steffen is Gregg Berhalter's number one. He's the most experienced. He has a lot of history with Gregg Berhalter. He has the most caps. Now, both Matt Turner and Ethan Horvath did a lot this summer to convince Gregg that they should start. So to be honest, I would be okay with any of these three guys starting, with a caveat. If you're going to play them, you have to play to their strengths. For example, if you're going to play Matt Turner, you cannot expect him to build out of the back under an intense high press, because he's not good enough technically to do that. We saw that in the Gold Cup, where in some of the opening games, he looked a little shaky building out of the back, and that's understandable considering the late start that he had in his career. He missed the crucial years of technical development. But in the later stages of the Gold Cup, it appeared that he was no longer being asked to do that, and that was good work by Gregg. You know, playing to his strengths allows him to be confident and to do what he does best, which is shot stopping. We also saw Matt Turner save some penalties in the All-Star game last night, and that was really good to see. Ethan Horvath and Zack Steffen's lack of playing time for their clubs is a concern. Although Steffen did play one game and Horvath has played 2 games so far, I wasn't able to watch either of those games because they weren't available, but from what I hear, he played well. And from what I hear, Zack Steffen also played well in his solitary game. I doubt very much Steffen's going to unseat Ederson for a role at Manchester City, but Ethan Horvath has every opportunity to unseat Bryce Samba, who started the season quite shakily, and I hope that Chris Hughton gives Ethan Horvath the start this weekend. That would go a long way towards his claims to being the USMNT's number one. But like I said, guys, Zack Steffen very likely to start against El Salvador, at least, probably the majority of these games. Could we see some rotation between goalkeepers? I doubt it, guys. I would be surprised. You want stability between the posts, and I don't think we're going to see too much rotation. Fullbacks time. DeAndre Yedlin, Sergino Dest, Antonee Robinson, and George Bello. Guys, I like all of these picks. Sergino Dest and Antonee Robinson are the starters for me. But I would have no problem with either DeAndre Yedlin or George Bello starting. Some people might be surprised to see George Bello here based on the fact that Sam Vines got the lion's share of minutes at the Gold Cup, and it was sort of a direct competition between those two. But I thought Bello's performance against Mexico in the final gives him an edge. Long term, I actually think that Bello has a higher ceiling than Vines, and while that means very little today, I think that technically he can be a better player than Vines. I do think that Vines, having just moved to Royal Antwerp, played a part in this decision though. Gregg probably wants Vines to settle in and earn his spot there, and taking him away for a week or 10 days when you already had at least similar or equal option seemed like the wise decision, and I agree with Gregg on that. DeAndre Yedlin appears to be here ahead of guys like Reggie Cannon or Shaq Moore. Neither Cannon nor Moore has started the season with a ton of minutes, but then neither has DeAndre Yedlin. My guess is Yedlin is here for his experience and ability to understand CONCACAF. Guy has 64 caps, has played as a World Cup. I like this pick. I like DeAndre Yedlin here. Hopefully he can sort out his club situation with Galatasaray sooner rather than later. Some people also asking, where's Joe Scally? Guys, Joe Scally has played 2 professional games in his career. One of them against Bayern Munich, he was very good. And in the subsequent game, he wasn't. He's still very, very young. He still has a lot that he can improve and learn. And I think we will see him get better over time. But right now, I think leaving Joe Scally off the team was the right decision. Like I said, guys, I'm fine with all 4 of these fullbacks. Into center backs now, and we have John Brooks, Mark McKenzie, Miles Robinson, James Sands, Tim Ream, and Walker Zimmerman. And there is a lot we can take away from this set of defenders. 6 defenders does surprise me a little, but it may speak to the fact that we are going to, at some point in this window, play 3 at the back. I say that not only because there's 6 defenders, but also because James Sands is there, who we saw play sort of a hybrid role in a back 3 and step into the midfield as a 6, both in possession of the ball and also when trying to snuff out counterattacks. So that, my guess is we're going to see a back 3 at some point, possibly against Canada at home in the second game. But let's talk a little bit about these personnel. I agree with maybe 4 of these guys, and I don't hate Walker Zimmerman being there. I really question why Tim Ream is here, though. I don't really understand what he brings to the table. Chris Richards would have been a much, much better option for me. Now, the argument against Chris Richards being included in this window is that he's not playing much for Bayern Munich, and yes, that is true. He did play 45 minutes this last weekend against a very poor German team, and he played just 3 minutes last weekend. It is one of the best teams in the world. We saw Chris Richards play regularly and well for Hoffenheim last season, so the idea that he's not ready is just not true. Perhaps there is a club situation that we don't know about. Perhaps there is a loan move going on right now, and Berhalter wants to let him sort that out before calling him in. That would be the only logical reason for me why he wouldn't be here, because his lack of playing time makes no sense when you consider that Walker Zimmerman hasn't played for the last month. He just made his comeback in the All-Star game last night. So the idea that, Zimmerman is in form is just not true, right? Don't get me wrong, Zimmerman had a good couple of games at the Gold Cup, but if you're talking about guys who are playing, Zimmerman is not playing. And Tim Ream, for my money, really shouldn't be here. But overall, this is our big takeaways. McKenzie, Robinson, and Brooks. The question now is who's going to partner John Brooks, because he is one of our starters. My guess/hope would be Miles Robinson. I think he performed well enough in the Gold Cup to earn at least a look as a right center back. Remember, he was playing out of position in the Gold Cup. We could give him a start next to John Brooks. He's also a little more athletic, a little quicker to cover, and sort of plays that Aaron Long role, because John Brooks, we should talk about, guys. John Brooks can be a liability when the ball is played in behind. He is very slow on the turn and very slow to make recovery runs. We've seen this for the US in the past. We saw it against Honduras, for example. We saw it against Switzerland, and we've seen it for Wolfsburg as well. I like John Brooks, don't get me wrong. I think he should start. It doesn't mean he doesn't have weaknesses and things that we should be on the lookout for. Midfielders, and probably the group of guys who I have the most issue with. Tyler Adams, guys. It is going to be very good to see Tyler Adams playing starting for the national team, starting in this midfield. For my money, he should captain the team. I think he's the most natural leader in this group. Started the season well, playing for Jesse Marsch in Leipzig. Weston McKennie may or may not be getting a move from Juventus. We don't know if those rumors are true or if they're just speculation, but very likely to see him starting at least 2, if not all 3 games as a dual 8/box-to-box midfielder. Kellen Acosta, strong performances in the last 3 games of the Gold Cup after some pretty awful performances in the group stage. He seemed to get better as the tournament went on, and his peak performance came against Mexico. So he's definitely earned his spot in this roster with those performances. The question that I have is, which Acosta are we going to get, right? Because in the past, he's been inconsistent. Are we going to get the Acosta of the Gold Cup knockout? Are we going to get the Acosta of the group stage? Don't know. Rooting for the guy. Hope he does well. Sebastian Lletget, I have said more than enough about, guys. I think we have better options than Sebastian Lletget, and we'll talk about them. But the fact that he's on this roster is not a surprise. He is one of Gregg's favorites, and he will continue to be in rosters going forward, probably regardless of performance. I think Christian Roldan was the biggest surprise, not only for me, but for a lot of people. I guess because he hadn't been involved with the national team for the last couple of years. And, when he was involved in the Gold Cup, didn't exactly convince that he deserved a spot. But the question when we're evaluating this midfield is, well, who were the alternative options? I think the alternative options a lot of people wanted to see were either Julian Green from Greuther Fürth or Luca de la Torre. Now, there's two schools of thought. Luca de la Torre was invited to the Gold Cup and turned it down because he said, this was his reasoning, not mine, that he believed he had a greater chance of making the World Cup qualifying roster by performing well for his club. At the time, I disagreed with him. I thought being in camp with Gregg and performing well would do a lot more for his chances. But that was his gamble, and ultimately it didn't pay off. Do I still think he should be on this roster? For my money, yes. But I understand the logic of, well, if you turn down a call-up to your country, then you can't be surprised when you don't get called in the following camp. The other one is Julian Green, and Julian Green is a different situation. He wanted to come to Gold Cup. Gregg wanted him to come to Gold Cup. Greuther Fürth said no, and so we didn't get to see him. I'm a little bit disappointed that Gregg didn't put his foot down with Greuther Fürth and say, we've never called up this guy in the last 2 years. We have every right to call him up for our regional tournament, just like we have a right, the European teams have a right to call people up for the Euros, or the South American teams have a right to call people up for Copa America. As a national team, we shouldn't have a small mentality where we always defer to these European clubs. He's our guy. He plays for our national team. And I think Gregg should have put his foot down and called him up. The fact that he didn't means we didn't get to see what Julian Green can do, and now Julian Green is not there. I would absolutely have Julian Green or Luca de la Torre in this roster over Christian Roldan. But this is Gregg's roster. This is Gregg's choice. He has earned the benefit of the doubt by winning 2 trophies this summer, right? And really all Gregg has to do is keep winning. If he continues to do that, questions about the team's actual performance will continue to be swept under the rug. And that's something I want to see, guys, in this camp. Gregg, when he came into the national team, talked a lot about being an attacking, possession-based team, creating goal-scoring chances with the ball. We haven't done that, right? Most of our success has come from the same thing that we've been for the last 20 years. Defensive, scrappy, hardworking, good at set pieces, good on a counterattack sometimes. And we continue to be that. Now, if that's all we want to be and we can continue to win that way, great. Personally, I would like to see us evolve more than that. But let's see in this camp if we can do that. The other thing to think about with this midfield is the fact that there's only 5 may speak to either Gio Reyna or Brenden Aaronson playing more centrally at some point during this camp. I could not be happier if that happens, specifically Gio Reyna, who is now playing there for Dortmund. I have been saying he should play there for the last year, and I hope we get to see it in this camp. Let's get into the forwards now, my favorite part of this roster, probably the strongest part of this roster. Christian Pulisic, Josh Sargent, Gio Reyna, Jordan Siebatcheu, Brenden Aaronson, Tim Weah, Ricardo Pepi, and Konrad de la Fuente. Guys, I don't think we could have asked for a better forward line. Pulisic, we don't know if he's going to be in El Salvador or not, based on his just returning from COVID. But guys, there are 8 forwards. This is another reason why I think either Aaronson or Reyna will play centrally at some point. 8 forwards and only 5 midfielders. I'm hoping for it. Fingers crossed that happens. Really excited about all of these guys. Jassi Zardes was injured. Daryl Dike hasn't played for some time. I think other people maybe wanted to see Matthew Hoppe. And while I understand that, I specifically want to see Matthew Hoppe as a center forward. I do think that because he's just got back from training after an illness and a lot of transfer speculation, he's not fully fit, he's not fully ready to come back. That's okay. Let him stay with Schalke. Hopefully he gets some kind of a transfer. But if he doesn't, he has another month to prove himself, and then maybe we call him up in October. Jordan Sibachau has not been very good in the last few games. He started the season well in terms of goal scoring, but there's still a lot of question marks for Jordan Sibachau, or Pefok as he likes to be called. I don't think he has a long-term future with this national team. But considering that DK is not there, and Zardes is not there, and Gio hasn't played much for Khan, I sort of understand the Pefok inclusion. Just for my money, guys, he's going to have to do a lot better, both with his off-ball movement, with his hold-up play, and with his being a threat in the air. Maybe he does. Maybe he shows up in this camp. I certainly hope so. The thing is, guys, whether I agree with any of these picks, as soon as they put on that jersey and step across that white line, I'm rooting for them. Whether that's Ream or Roldan or Lletget or anybody else, if you're playing for the national team, I'm a fan of you, and I hope you do well. I think we could do better than some of our midfielders. But this forward line is very, very exciting. Let's talk about the starting lineup for El Salvador, guys. I think we're going to play a 4-3-3. Gregg has used this formation for the majority of his tenure, and I think he's going to go with continuity in a tricky away qualifier. Zack, Steffen in goal. I think Robinson will line up with Brooks in the center. I think that Robinson and Dest will play the fullback roles. That midfield, I think, will look like Adams, McKennie, and Lletget. That seems to be Gregg Berhalter's preferred trio in midfield if Yunus Musa is not there, or as we saw in Nations League, even if Yunus Musa is there. I expect Gio Reyna to start on the right wing, or in the half space, as some people like to call it. And I do think Brenden Aaronson will start this game, considering that Pulisic is not yet back from COVID. We don't know if Pulisic is going to play for Chelsea at all this weekend, but I do expect him to be on the bench for this game, just not a starter. Josh Sargent, fresh off his first 2 goals for Norwich City, I expect to start up top. All right, guys, those are my thoughts on this exciting roster. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I cannot wait. We will do a live hangout this Sunday to talk about all of this and more. You guys are awesome. See you Sunday.